When I was in jail, 2007, I realized that I wanted to be the transitional character in my family. And in order to do that, I needed to be successful. I asked my dad a bunch of questions because I was like a talkative, outgoing kid. My dad says to me, "Son, shut up. You ask too many questions." And it just like crushed me because I was like, I just wanted him to like talk to me and love me. So being made fun of by my friends, my dad telling me I talk too much, my fear was like, there's no way I can be a speaker. My dad told me to shut my mouth. And then all of a sudden I was like, I can do this. And then I became a speaker. Now I'm on the biggest stages in the world. Now I'm building an incredible brand, impacting millions of lives. I'm gonna change because I want to be a different person.
What helped you to build a business? Ryan Zofay has not only rebuilt his own life, but has made it his mission to impact thousands of others. He's the founder of We Level Up, a 9-figure rehab and personal development business, employing over 600 and helping countless individuals reclaim their lives. Ryan is also a mental health advocate, author, coach, and an entrepreneur who dedicates his time to sharing actionable tools for mindset shifts, self-love, and breaking free from the limiting beliefs. You studied giant mentors like Tony Robbins, Grant Cardone, all these. What are the key lessons that you gathered from these people?
Meeting Tony, he says
Welcome back, Alpha Squad, to another inspiring episode of the Alpha Talks Show, the #1 fastest growing show in the region. Today we're deep diving into a journey of resilience, transformation, and purpose that will leave you empowered and ready to take actions. Our Alpha guest is someone who has truly defied the odds, from facing the darkest corners of life, 21 felonies, addiction, and even becoming pronounced dead at the age of 17. He has emerged as a beacon of hope and transformation. With over 23 years of sobriety, Ryan Zofay has not only rebuilt his own life, but has made it his mission to impact thousands of others. He's the founder of We Level Up, a 9-figure rehab and personal development business, employing over 600 and helping countless individuals reclaim their lives. Ryan is also a mental health advocate, author, coach, and an entrepreneur who dedicates his time to sharing actionable tools for mindset shifts, self-love, and breaking free from the limiting beliefs. Today we're going to explore Ryan's incredible journey, how he turned tragedy into triumph, the principles that guide his success, and his insights on living a life of purpose and fulfillment. Alpha Squad, get ready to be inspired. Please join me in welcoming the remarkable Alpha, Ryan Zofay, to the Alpha Talks show. It's an honor to have you today, man.
Brother, the honor's mine. You know, I appreciate people like you that create a platform so that I can share my message, so that I can give hope to those that may be listening or may feel like their backs against the wall and they don't know that there's a way out. So thank you for allowing me on your show.
It's a pleasure and it's an honor, and I'm sure it's going to be a great episode because you're talking about an area where a lot of people need it. Ryan, before we start, I have a nugget question that says, once we launch the episode, people will see the thumbnail, the graphics, the title, and they will think that's an extremely interesting episode. What can you promise them to gain if they gave us their time today?
I promise that you will hear a guy that was dealt cards that would have been folded by many people.
True.
So many times people would have given up that if they would have been faced what I was faced with. And to be able to get through that and have the unconditional love and compassion for life that I have, and even for my parents, because they were the ones that did a lot of the stuff to me.
True.
And so really just understanding what unconditional love is really all about.
A quick note, before we jump into this episode, I find this incredibly intriguing. On the back end of our YouTube channel, it says around 75% of you who watch this channel frequently over the lifetime of this channel haven't yet hit the subscribe button. I just wanted to ask you for a favor. It helps this channel so much if you choose to just subscribe. It helps us invite guests that give you great value. It helps us scale the production and as well makes this show bigger and bigger for you. So if I will ask you just one favor, and if you enjoyed the previous episodes and you're currently enjoying this episode, could you please hit the subscribe button? I love your support. It's incredible to see all your comments and engagement, and we are just starting. I can't wait to go on this journey with you. Thank you so much, and I will repay this gesture by making sure that everything we do on this show makes it bigger, and better. I'm committed to do this promise. Do we have a deal? Thank you so much for subscribing. It means the world to me. You know, I love the statement, shit. And I reflect, your circle is Nick. Correct?
Yeah.
Your circle is also the people that dealt cards, that most of the people around us will just, we're done.
Fold it.
Exactly. Fold and we're out. So again, it's a pleasure, and I'm sure it's going to be a great episode. Let's start with, who's Ryan in a nutshell from your perspective?
Yeah, I would like to say my claim to fame is my sobriety. 23 years of sobriety. I have a ton of success in a ton of areas, but I think the foundation of all of my success comes from being sober and really getting through that adversity. Having, overcoming something so difficult, when you apply that to any other area of your life, it seems kind of easy. And so a 12-step program that I practice, it's designed to get you closer to God. It's designed to strengthen your relationship with God. So I've been practicing 23 years, the mindset, what's God's will versus Ryan's will. And so the more I focus on God's will, the more I look to serve others, the more I look to solve other people's problems, the byproduct of that is a ton of success.
True.
And I didn't know that in the beginning when I started. I was doing it because I wanted to live. My life was literally like, it was done. I was looking at 25 to life.
True.
I was proclaimed dead at the scene of a crime. So for me, it was like survival. Like if I didn't get sober, I would have spent the rest of my life in prison or dead.
True. I want to go back to this. Take us back a little bit in time. Man, you had a lot in your childhood. So take me back to it, and how did you exit this?
So the first real tragedy that happened was my sister passed away. That was when I was 5. It destroyed my family. My mom and my dad divorced. My mother started to use prescription drugs to numb, to escape the death of my sister. My father became a workaholic and an alcoholic. And so I was literally like pushed to the side. They were dealing with their own issues. I was left to survive on my own, physically and emotionally. I kept going to my different grandparents' house. So immediately I was adopting these beliefs that I was worthless, that I was a nobody. My parents didn't care about me. And in my mind, I would literally feel like what about me?
True.
Like I lost a sister too. All I wanted was them to be with me. They just didn't know how. They didn't understand. My mother turned to a very addictive, abusive relationship with my brother. I have a brother. One of the greatest gifts that marriage gave me. But this man was extremely abusive. Shot my mom in the neck with a .357, stabbed her 13 times. Got her hooked up on crack cocaine. Used to prostitute her, sell her, and so this was my environment as a child. And so when I went through those events, I just didn't care if I lived anymore. Yeah. I was just on a path of destruction. I was doing anything and everything I could to escape from myself. I hated who I was. I didn't feel like my parents loved me. So if you don't care about me, then why should I care about me? And that was my destructive path. So I was in and out of juvenile detention facilities for 2 years. October 8th, 2001, I was in a high-speed chase. I was running from the cops. And I wasn't driving. I was in the passenger seat. My friend flipped a car, and I was proclaimed dead at the scene. Poof. Woke up, was in juvie, and I literally remember sitting in the cell just like crying out to God, like, why me? Like, why didn't you just take my life? Like, why didn't you just end it? Like, I don't want to be here. Like, I'm in jail. I'm looking at 25 to life. Like, I hated myself because I literally thought I was going to spend the rest of my life in prison.
Well, that was on age of 17, correct?
I was 16.
Yeah.
October 8th, 2001, I was 16. And so, but that was the best thing that could have happened to me because I had this voice. There's this thing that we all have inside of us. It's the take action mechanism that's in our soul, that's in our spirit, that little voice. And that little voice kept getting louder and louder. And I was at a place of surrender. I was like, there's nothing else I can do. There's nothing else no one I could talk to, no one I can manipulate. It was just me, myself. And that was when I started to establish a relationship with God. And
That's before the decision of the judge to let you go or not?
Yeah, this was before.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe this was the chain of events that happened that eventually convinced the judge. Yeah. I started to believe that I can get out of here. There was this little voice inside my head that was just like, you just have to have faith. And so I was actually in church in the detention center, and the lady came over to me, pastor. She said, young man, do you believe? And I was like, what do you mean, do I believe? She's like, do you believe that God could do for you what you can't do for yourself? And I was like, yeah, but that doesn't mean nothing. Like, I'm in here, I'm done. Like, there's people in here that have much less charges than me that are gone. And she's like, young man, I want you to believe because I believe. She says, God has a plan for you. And so that was when like the seed was planted. And for whatever reason, I just kept listening to that voice.
And you felt it.
I did. It was like inside of me. And then my mom, she got sober. My mom came into the detention center, and my mom was like, baby, I got you in here. I'm going to get you out. And I was just like, this was crazy, because like the lady tells me God's going to do something for you. God's got a plan for you. And then my mom comes in. She's sober now. I've never seen my mom sober. I haven't seen my mom in years because I'm on the streets running away. She's gorgeous. I'm like, oh my God, this is my mom. And there's something they say in recovery, it's attraction, not promotion. Mm-hmm. And so she was attractive. I was like, dang, my mom looks good. Now I know where I get the looks from. And then the judge just gave me another chance, man. I don't know how or why, but it happened. And when I was in jail at that time, that was when I knew I was going to be great. That was when I knew something was going to happen magnificent in my life. And I reflect back now, being here with the life I have today, and now it makes sense.
True. How was the early days of sobriety?
It's rough, bro. It's rough. It's not easy, man. Because you're doing all these addictive behaviors, lying, manipulating, stealing. You're doing anything you possibly can to get the drug. You remove the drug, the liar, the thief, is all still there. And now it's not numb. So you're just like wild. I was wild. I was out of my mind. And I got sober at 16. So think about it. In my late teens, sober, I was a monster, dude. I was fighting people. I was multiple women. Like my new addiction was like rage, anger, women. That was like my addiction. And so that lasted for about 5 years. And then 2016, my mom relapsed. My dad was diagnosed with cancer. And I got into an altercation with somebody, and it was like an aha moment. Like, dude, you got to change. Like you got to do more. You got to dig in deep and understand like where the stuff is coming from.
So what did you do more?
Yeah, so I mean, really just understanding like inner child work, experiential therapy. And so I started to see a therapist, and I started to identify what was going on unconsciously.
True.
You know, the behaviors, like what was causing me to act this way, what was driving these decisions and these choices.
A lot of people think the therapist, or they run away from therapist.
Yeah.
You understand? Like it's,
sure.
No, I'm not sick. Why do I need a therapist?
Sure.
What kind of message you want to give to them?
Yeah, so it's very simple. 95% of the decisions we make are unconscious. That means they're in your blind spot.
True.
So 95% of what we do is in your blind spot. So if you don't have somebody pointing out your blind spots, you're just going to continue to move through life running an unconscious program, truly not empowered, truly living in a victim mindset, not taking responsibility, and then you're miserable. True. That's the truth. So you want to lean in to the discomfort. You want to lean in to somebody that's going to tell you the truth, not tell you what you want to hear.
True.
And so that's what therapists do. And I get it. There's some are better than others, but for me, I'm a believer in trust the tongue in somebody's shoe versus the tongue in somebody's mouth. So I would rather you get a crappy therapist and do something than get no therapist at all. Because eventually you're going to evolve, and then you will find out that maybe that's not a good therapist for you, but then you get another therapist.
I love that.
I've evolved a couple times over my journey. I've had multiple therapists, and that's the way it is, but you got to do something.
True. Ryan, people can solve and fix their past traumas. You had a lot of past traumas.
Yeah.
And some people say, no, you can't change a person. Is it true, or you really can't change a person?
So it's simple. 95% of what we do is unconscious.
True.
So memories are records of the past. And so from whenever you started to develop your belief systems between the ages of 1 and 8, whatever was going on during that time is when the model of your world is being created. Mm-hmm. And then as you get older, those beliefs are reaffirmed. Okay. The mind looks for evidence to support its belief systems. So if you're feeling insecure at 6, and then you went to school and you asked a girl out when you were 9 and she said no, you just reaffirm that insecurity.
Yeah.
And so you move that through life, and here you are in the present moment, and you go out and you look for a business deal, or you try to get a sales job and somebody says, I'm not interested. you get triggered and you go back to that 6-year-old program and you're looking through the lens of that experience. And so until you actually deal with that insecurity, you will never be able to look at life through the lens of love and compassion and acceptance. I say this, you will never be consistent with anything that is inconsistent with your unconscious program. So if you grew up poor, it's not going to make sense to you to invest in yourself.
True.
Because your unconscious program is going to be like, oh, don't do that.
Doesn't matter.
That doesn't make sense. That's not you. You're not qualified. That's not available to you. Why are you going to waste your money like that? So the product of your environment when you were a child is directly going to impact who you are today, unless you do something about it.
Super. Is Level Up or We Level Up has something to do with this?
Yeah, sure.
So tell me the idea. First of all, why you created We Level Up?
Sure. So 2007, I realized that I wanted to be the transitional character in my family. And in order to do that, I needed to be successful. That was the belief that I had. I needed to be rich. That was my mindset. That's all I cared about. So I started doing commodities. So from 2007 to 2012, I literally just turned away from recovery, dove in, really started to do anything and everything I could to make money. I started to sell commodities, which was a high aggressive investment. And a lot of people lost money. Morally and ethically, didn't feel good. 2012, I got sued by the Federal Trade Commission for $10 million. My fiance left me. I hit rock bottom. Again, at my darkest moments, happened to be my best moment because that was when I found the leverage to change.
Transition.
And I was like, all right, I got to do something. And what are you good at, Ryan? I'm like, well, I'm sober. You know, I've been sober since 16, so I have that gift. And I remember being in early recovery, a lot of the people would look up to me. So I was like, well, maybe I want to get in the rehab business. And so then 2013 came along. My father gave me some startup capital because I got sued. I lost everything. So I bought into a company that wasn't doing well. I had sales and marketing experience because of commodities. Jumped into the business, and from 2013 till now, we've grown the business tremendously.
Wow.
Yeah.
What does We Level Up do?
So 2019, we changed the brand. I started going to Tony Robbins, and I started to identify that my life's purpose is to change the world.
Okay.
And so I wanted to create a brand that was not only specific to my industry, but specific to my lifestyle. And so everybody that is around us, everybody that's in our organization, everybody that's involved with us, including Nick, we have this We Level Up mentality, right? Because the more you can raise your consciousness, the closer you're getting to source, the closer you're getting to wholeness, the closer you're getting to unconditional love, the closer you're getting to abundance, and then you receive so much more at that level. So the idea is just to constantly level up your mindset. And so that's where We Level Up came in. And so from 2019 till now, we've just dove in and serve. So we serve people that are suffering from substance abuse disorders, mental health illnesses, eating disorders. That is our primary business. We also have the coaching business where I teach people how to heal inner trauma, how to resolve the past, how to change the meaning of the past, how to change their perception of the past and be a creator in their life so that they can actually go out there and create an abundant, incredible life.
Wow. I need some nuggets. Let's go back to the unconscious part, which I think that you do with We Level Up. How to change the unconscious mind, the beliefs. Like a person, let's talk about whatever. Maybe from a relationship perspective, maybe from a money perspective, maybe parents' perspective. So the lens back in the days, super shit, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
How can a person change it?
Sure. So 2019, November 2019, I watched Tony Robbins come out on stage. We were at the American Airlines Arena in Miami Beach, Florida. 15,000 people. The crowd erupted. Yeah. And I was just like, oh my God, I want to do that. Nick came out, did the same thing. It's like, oh my God, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
My unconscious program was this. When I was in 7th grade, my parents got me this program called Hooked on Phonics Works for Kids. My friends used to pull it out from under my bed and make fun of me. And so I thought I was stupid. I thought there was something wrong with me. The fact was that I had parents that were drug addicts and they didn't ever pay attention to me. So clearly not going to school caused me not to excel.
School, education, true.
I didn't excel. Fast forward, I'm in the front seat of my father's pickup truck. I'm bouncing around. I'm playing like a kid does. I ask my dad a bunch of questions because I was like a talkative, outgoing kid. My dad says to me, son, shut up. You ask too many questions. And it just like crushed me because I was like, I just wanted him to like talk to me and have love me. So being made fun of by my friends, my dad telling me I talk too much, my fear was like, there's no way I can be a speaker. I'm not smart enough.
True.
I can't speak. What I say isn't good enough. My dad told me to shut my mouth. And so that's my unconscious program. And so what would need to happen is you have to go back to those moments and express the emotions around it. Because trauma is when your brain receives information where it doesn't make sense of it or it's incapable of understanding, it creates this trauma expression in your autonomic nervous system. And so in order to close the loop, you have to be able to express. So like in that moment, as a little boy, bouncing around in my dad's front seat, I just wanted to cry. I just wanted my dad to tell me to come here, hug me, love me, tell me it's okay. I couldn't do that. I couldn't express myself. So I just bottled everything up. And so in that moment, when you bottle everything up, it's stored in your nervous system. And so in order to heal that, you have to go back to that moment, relive that experience, and allow that little boy that's inside to express himself. And then co-parent yourself with a guide, with somebody that's guiding you to love you unconditionally in that moment. And then as soon as your little boy, your inner child, is able to fully express that moment and cry and say what it wanted to say at that time and have the space and the freedom to do so, and then change the meaning around the story you told yourself, because the story I was telling myself is my dad didn't love me, I was stupid, I talked too much. My dad was going through a divorce. My dad was dealing with his own issues, but I couldn't see that at that time. And so you have to be able to express that at that time and allow your mind to reprogram. And that immediately changes everything that's happening in the present moment. And then all of a sudden I was like, I can do this. And then I became a speaker. Now I'm on the biggest stages in the world. Now I'm building an incredible brand, impacting millions of lives.
People can do this alone or need, as you said?
Yeah, I mean, so
it's hard to do it alone.
Yeah, the truth is I would not have been able to do it by myself. I needed somebody to push me, because your unconscious program won't allow you to do that because it's scary. And so you need somebody to kind of guide you along and kind of nudge you a little bit.
True. If I'm talking about one statement that you said before, that happiness comes from inside. Can you elaborate for us? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, sure. So your personality is something that you believe, you behave, and you become. So when you believe something, you behave a certain way, and that's who you become. And that is your personality. Well, typically what happens, whatever environment you grew up in is your personal reality, right? That's your reality. That's the environment you grew up in.
True.
So if people are teaching you things and they're not showing you how to express love, express your emotions, feel safe, that is going to impact you internally. It's going to impact your belief systems.
And thoughts and truth.
So in order to change your personal reality from today's present moment, you have to change your personality, which is what you believe. And then whatever you believe is going to determine how you behave. And then however you behave is going to determine who you're becoming. It's all about who you're becoming. It's all about who you're showing up as. So think of it like this. Like if I'm out there pursuing success, but I'm insecure, I'm in revenge, I'm bitter, I'm going to be an insecure, bitter, revenge person pursuing success. Well, if I am an unconditionally loving, forgiving human being out there pursuing success, which one do you think is going to be more successful?
Of course.
And so many people think the outside stuff is going to change who they are on the inside. That's not how it works. It's an inside out job.
True. You studied giant mentors like Tony Robbins, Grant Cardone, all these. What are the key lessons that you gathered from these people? And actually, I believe that you're passing over to your followers.
For sure. So you can't keep what you have unless you give it away. And so that's one of the biggest things that Tony teaches. And that's just something that's been reaffirmed since I got to recovery, because the 12-step program is all about, having had a spiritual awakening. As a result of these steps, we carry this message to others that are suffering. And so that is my primary purpose in life today. I still have a men's group that I do every Thursday where I teach people recovery. I still go to meetings, several a week. I I have a sponsor. I sponsor people. And so the idea of giving is already indoctrinated in me. Meeting Tony, he says the gift of living is giving. And so there's two options in life. Either you give or you don't give.
True.
Well, if you're choosing to give or don't give based on what somebody else does, then you're not being a giver. And so it's funny because I just gave money to a guy on the side of the road over here, and somebody messaged me and said that this is his scheme. And so I asked the question, I put it on my social media. I said, would you still give knowing that this is the fact? And that's the point, because at the end of the day, like, I'm a giver. And so I knew that the guy was probably hustling me, but I want to be a giver.
Doesn't matter that.
Right. It doesn't matter what they're doing. I can only be responsible for what I'm doing.
True.
And so I think that is such a valuable lesson in life.
You spoke about the 12 system, right? 12-step system.
Yep.
Can you give us an overview? How does it look like?
Yeah. So the first step is admitting that you have a problem. Surrendering. It's the surrender process. So like me in jail, I surrendered. I was like, oh, I'm stuck now. There's nothing I could do. So please, God, take it. Take the problems. And that's essentially what you're doing. You're essentially just saying, like, look, my way isn't working. Somebody else, please help me.
True.
In that frame, what's really happening is you're becoming curious
and receptive.
You're receptive. You're curious. You're welcoming opportunity.
Yeah.
And so the surrendering process is actually such a gift, because it's like, hey, I'm struggling. Can you help me? Then you're going to get help.
True.
That's the way the universe works. So the first is just surrendering that you have a problem. Second is the willingness to believe that there is a higher power. You just have to be willing to believe. Like, hey, are you willing to believe that your life sucks and there's something out there better than you? As soon as you say yes, then the third step is to receive that higher power in your life. And that's where the practice comes in, God's will versus my will. So it's like, hey, from the third step perspective, you're going to practice God's will over your will. And it's your own conception of a higher power. It doesn't have to be what anybody else wants. It has to just be something above you, and it has to be your understanding, because there's a lot of atheists and agnostics out there. So that's the frame. And then the fourth step is like writing a list who you're mad at, everybody that you're upset about.
I love it.
Who are you pissed off, right?
Yeah.
And then after you write a list who you're pissed off, you look at the turnaround, which is like, what was your part in it? So it's taking responsibility. Like, hey, you're mad. Okay, cool. But what did you do? It's like, oh, crap. And then it's like the fifth step is you sit down and you tell your deepest, darkest secrets. You sit down with somebody. The book says you, an individual in your higher power, sit down and you tell everything. So you just do like a dump. You just do like a data dump.
To a person.
And God.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, God's present, whatever.
Yeah.
But the idea is to share everything. So then this way, there's no more skeletons in the closet.
True.
Somebody knows everything about you, because it causes you to be vulnerable. It's causing you to be honest. It's causing you to just fully expose yourself, because once you're fully exposed, you're unrobed, then God has all of you. There's no more mirrors. There's no more masks. Everything is just wide open. And then 6 and 7 is, character defects, identifying like, what are my character defects? And then asking God to remove those. 6 is character defects. 7 is asking God to remove these character defects. So you write a list of your character defects. Like I'm frustrated. I yell at my kids. I road rage, whatever the character defects are. And you just say, God, please humbly ask God to take them from me. That's 7. 8 is making a list of everybody that you've harmed. So you write a list of every name, every principle, every place that you've done something wrong to. That's 8. 9 is now going out and making amends. Going to those people, places, and things and saying, hey, I'm sorry. I did this, and this. And the intention with the amends is not to go to get that person to like you or to get that person to
accept, forgive, whatever.
You got to do your part.
Yeah.
And so 9 times out of 10, they do accept you and they do forgive you. And every now and again, they don't. And then 10, 11, 12 is just a repeat of 1 through 9. So 10 is like a daily reprieve. Every day before you go to bed, you ask God, did I do everything according to your plan? And if I didn't, immediately make amends. And then 11 is prayer and meditation. And then 12 is helping somebody else.
Wow. How do you define a person entering this 12 steps process and the exit? What's the kind of transformation? How do you put it in a couple of words?
I mean, you're talking about human aid versus God's aid. Like you, before you get to AA or NA or any 12-step program, you're running on self-will. So you're a human.
True. Living
in God's world, trying to be God. That's not going to work. Well, as soon as you turn your will over to God and start living God's will, miracles that God has for you start to get presented.
I have another question within the process. The character defects. Let's say I don't know, a person who is angry. Okay? My temper goes up very fast. And I write it on a piece of paper. And then what happens? And I ask God, what is there an action that I need to do to get rid of this?
Yeah, I mean, so the 12-step process is the action, right? So it's like you're going to go make amends now because you just acted out. You've responded in a way that you don't want to respond, and that would be 10, 11, and 12. And so the action step would be when we were wrong, we promptly admit it. And so if you do something, you're like, oh, shit, I just did it again.
Yeah.
You go make amends. And then eventually you're getting tired of making amends. But what the point of it is it's becoming conscious and aware of your unconscious program. Because the more you can be aware of it, the more you can identify what's going on, the more you can do something about it.
True.
That's from a 12-step perspective.
Yeah, I love that. You talked about the power of being vulnerable in leadership. Why it's important? Because sometimes people have the perception of the leader that is tough, a mask, a box, a black box that nobody knows anything about.
Sure.
But being vulnerable, I totally believe that's the correct. But from your perspective, why?
Yeah, I mean, so the in my view, vulnerability means you have all of me. Vulnerability means that I'm not deflecting anything. That means I'm being full and transparent. And when you're being full and transparent, you're coming from an abundant place. So if I stand in front of you and I give you everything that I have, then I am in an abundant mindset. I am in a trusting mindset. I am in a mindset of faith, because at this moment, you're getting all of me. And leadership is all about attraction, not promotion.
True.
Leadership is all about practicing what you preach rather than just preaching it, or like walk the walk versus talk the talk. So demonstrate from an example perspective of like, hey, this is what it looks like to be a leader, to be vulnerable, to be authentic. Because the objective with leadership, in my view, is to pull people closer to you. And so if I have a wall, if I have a mask on, theoretically, I'm not allowing you to get into me.
True.
So I'm keeping you away. And so if I open up, that means I'm allowing you to come full in. And that means I'm pulling you closer to me.
Some people will say like, Ryan, yes, it's 100%, I love it. But like people can take an advantage of that, right? When you're becoming so open and like vulnerable, people can take an advantage.
Yeah, so I have the belief that the only way somebody could take advantage of you is if you allow that to happen. So you ask, for example, like a woman that stays in an abusive relationship and she keeps coming to her friends and saying, Tommy just beat me again. Tommy beat me again. 10 times Tommy keeps beating you. Why are you staying? Because we teach people how to treat us. And so there's this misconception that if you're vulnerable, people would take advantage of you. No, the only reason they're taking advantage of you is because you're allowing them to take advantage of you. I'm going to teach you how to treat me. So if I'm vulnerable and you do something that I don't like, hey, that's not acceptable. It's simple. It has nothing to do with needing to close or put up a wall. It just has to do with me taking responsibility.
True. I love how you put it. Totally on point. Ryan wrote a book.
Yeah.
It's called Unlikely Businessman, From Overdose to a Multimillionaire. What inspired you to write that?
Dude, that was probably one of the most difficult things I've ever done, man. It took me almost 3 years to do the book because I used to be so ashamed of who I was and the things that I did. The FTC lawsuit and how I behaved in relationships and how I had intimate relationships and my ego and just I hated who I was and I was so ashamed. And so like putting it all on paper and allowing the world to see was an act of vulnerability, was an act of leadership, because I'm like, hey, you know what, God, here's all of me. I'm not perfect. I've made a ton of mistakes. Here you go. And once I did that, dude, it was so freeing. I was so free.
True.
It took me probably like 4 or 5 months. I kept worrying about it. Like, what are people, are they reading it? They hate me.
True.
Like literally, bro, like I would be talking to somebody and then like if they just disappeared for like a couple weeks, I'd be like, did they read my book? They see something in my book they didn't like? They not like me now? Bro, it was crazy. But then I got through all that. Now I'm like, whatever. I don't really care, you know?
Writing a book, it's something big.
Yeah.
A lot of people do it now from a perspective of personal branding. But actually a process, it's a big process. And of course, you have a message that you want all the people that reads the book to get out of it. What was this message? A hidden message? What?
Yeah, so it's really just a message of hope. You know, going through extreme trauma, having my back against the wall, cards stacked against me, and just stepping into faith and really not giving up on myself. It's a message to show people it doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter what you've been through, you can truly be the creator of your life and you can build something that is beyond human capacity. And that's really what I'm experiencing today in my life. Like, this feels like a movie to me. I don't even, like, it's hard to believe sometimes that this is what I'm doing. And so the intention is to just show people, like,
Did you have somebody in mind when you were writing the book?
I would say I was thinking of my future self. You know, what is the guy 10 years from now going to look back and say? You know, is he going to be proud of you? Your kids that you're going to have one day in the future, are they going to look back and be proud of you? Your friends, are they going to look back and be proud of you? The people's lives that you've changed, what are they going to say about you? And so for me, dude, it's like, I don't want another day to go by where I'm not truly in choice and I'm not truly living the life that I want to design, because I don't want to look back in 10 years and be like, damn, man, I wish I would have done that one thing. Damn, I wish I would have wrote that book. Dang, I wish I would have had that conversation with that person that was struggling.
Loved it, how you nailed it. For the Alpha Squad listening to us, what will be the insight from the book or a strategy from the book that you really want to share it with them now?
I think the most important aspect of life, in my view today, is like truly taking responsibility. And what I mean by that, I don't mean like take out the trash or take the kids to school. I don't mean take responsibility from that perspective. I'm saying it from like an empowering perspective, right? And so for so long, I would blame
Everything.
people, my surrounding, my circumstances on why I was who I was. And so as soon as I took my power back and said, you know what, I'm going to change because I want to be a different person, is the most valuable lesson that you're going to find in that book. You're going to see there's a ton of vulnerability. There's a ton of honesty. There's a ton of taking responsibility. And it's a practice for me, you know, because we are the creators of our lives. Whether you're in the life that you want or the life that you don't want, you've created it. And so once you can own that, and once you can see that you've created every situation that you're in, then you took your power back. Because if you're not the creator in your life, then who is?
True.
If you didn't do that thing, then who did? Mm-hmm. You were there, but you don't want to take responsibility.
Either you acted or you reacted. Right. It's you.
You're there. There's no other, like, you're there, but you want to now say you weren't there, you know, or somebody else caused you to be there. Well, you chose to go there. You were there.
True. If I ask you a question you can go back to the childhood time, but if I ask you, what was your favorite failure to date? Favorite failure, a failure that you are grateful that it happened, that it changed everything for you.
I mean, I would say consciously, because I knew what I was doing was wrong, was when I got sued by the Federal Trade Commission. That was the best thing that could have happened to me from a professional perspective and even a personal perspective, because I realized like what a mess I made. And if I didn't do something different, then I would have probably ended up going back to jail, or I would have probably relapsed. And from my childhood, from the ages of 11 to 16 when I was using, although I was present in those moments, I didn't really know what the heck was going on. Mm-hmm. I was just numb the whole time. I was just stuck in the disease and the fog. And so when I got sober, I didn't pick up the chemical. I put the chemical down, but I was still acting out in other ways. And so the FTC lawsuit actually was the catalyst to have me change every area of my life.
Love that. Yeah. If I flip it and I say, what is the proudest moment to you to date?
I would say the proudest moment is having been sued by the FTC, feeling the guilt and the shame that I was experiencing, and took that and still pursued my own healing and took all of those painful moments and have used it to show other people what's possible. So I've taken my my negatives and have showed people like, hey, this is what can happen. This is what will happen if you don't do X, Y, and Z.
True. We have a nugget question here in the episode or the show. It's called the alpha question, which I ask you, how do you define an alpha from your perspective? What's an alpha?
I mean, you're going to get a ton of different perspectives on this, and there was definitely a ton of different answers I would have given you based on where I was at along my journey. You know, my 16 to 19, let's say, alpha to me meant like the baddest dude in the room.
True.
You know, like the badass. You know, like the man that like took the lead in the room. Like he was the badass. That was me, dude. I was so insecure and so feeling so insecure and so inadequate. Any room I stepped into, I would always challenge everybody in my mind. I would always be like, oh, I can take him. I can take him. Started boxing. I started to like get really strong in the gym just so that if I ever had to fight, I would win, so to speak. You know, that didn't end well for me, so to speak.
What about now?
Yeah, so now alpha to me is what's the level of impact you're creating in the world? And are you doing it at the highest level? And if you're not, are you on the journey to get there? Because for me, that's been one of the scariest challenges, is really to expose myself, to put myself on the biggest stages in the world, put myself on the biggest podcasts in the world, and just truly be vulnerable and be the example that the world needs to see. I did an event in Miami before I came to Dubai, and the lady, she messaged me and she's like, you know, I'm just so proud of you with what you're doing, because you're like the modern day Jesus. Like you're out there just doing healing. You're a healer. You know, I got to have miracle worker. Like that is my mindset. So like to me, alpha is like, are you out there like serving others, leading, demonstrating the change that the world needs to see? Are you representing how you want people to experience you and experience themselves?
I love it. But I want to circle back a little bit backwards.
Sure.
And I say, being an entrepreneur is not an easy thing. Whatever we see in the social media around us, that's like the ice of the iceberg. It's not true. There is a lot of back work. But even to run a business, it is something hard. That's why when somebody comes and tell me, I want to open my own business, I tell them, go learn first. Go sit in a company, see how process, systems, structures, a business model, how it works. In your case, you didn't have this. What helped you to build a business? So
going through what I went through as a child, you know, it really just conditioned me not to experience much fear. You know, I'm numb to fear. Like high stressful situations, extreme situations don't really bother me that much because of what I went through as a child. So like the thought of like opening a business is scary, that doesn't register for me. You know, so it just didn't ever register as like, oh, this is a scary thing to do. I was just like, okay, cool. Like I was the type of kid that like, you tell me I can't do something, I'm gonna prove it to you. That was just my mindset. So as soon as somebody says like, oh, this is hard, I'm gonna go try to do it to show them that it's not hard.
And you had mentors, of course. You had mentors down the line.
Sure.
Because running a business, again, like knowing the cash flow, the P&L, the balance sheet doesn't come out of nowhere.
Right.
So of course, I'll switch to a section called the Alpha Quickfire. I'll ask you a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
You give me a fast answer. What's the one word that describes we level up?
Compassion.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned from overcoming addiction?
Be a giver. Serve others.
If you had to sum up your leadership philosophy in one word, what would it be?
Vulnerability.
What is the boldest decision you've ever made in your career?
Becoming a thought leader.
What's one habit you credit most for your success?
My relentless approach, my obsession to be better.
What's the most fulfilling part of your work with We Level Up?
Seeing somebody else with a belief that they can't do something, watching them shift and step into something that they didn't even know existed, and just watching that light go off, watching that they just light up. I love that.
What's one thing people misunderstood about the work you do?
You know, I think there's a lot of stigma around the success, you know, financial success that we have. I think that people have a hard time understanding like, oh, you're helping suffering drug addicts and alcoholics and you're making millions on them. has nothing to do with that. Like, it's a business.
Yeah.
You know,
At
we're
the
a
end of the
healthcare
day,
industry,
yeah.
and we just happen to serve people that are struggling with addiction. And so they don't understand it. They don't understand what it takes to be successful. It's very difficult, as you mentioned.
If you could teach children one lesson, what this lesson will be?
What age?
Super child, below 10.
Understand that your parents are doing the best that they can.
Regardless the actions.
Regardless,
Sure.
yeah. Do you have kids?
No, but I understand you.
Yeah.
Is there something somebody has told you that it hurt you and you never forgot it?
I mean, it's so tough because I've done so much work on like all those different areas.
Yeah.
I think what probably hurt me the most was my mom when I got in a fight with her one time in my bedroom, and I told my dad that she was like stealing from him, and I was like stuck in the middle, and she was like hitting me with the phone, and she was like yelling at me and telling me I'm worthless and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Describe yourself in 3 words.
Unconditionally loving leader.
What is the best alpha advice that you've ever received?
Master your emotions. Master why you feel the way you feel. You know, really take the time to see what's going on inside. You know, it's an inside out job. So many people think that you get the car, you get the success, it's going to change how you feel inside. Most people do the thing trying to feel better about it, but it's an inside out job.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Alpha choices is another section. I'll tell you to choose between 2 things, and you have to choose one. Choosing resilience or choosing forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
Scaling business quickly or maintaining steady and purposeful growth.
Purpose for growth.
Writing a book or building a company.
Building a company.
Personal coaching or public speaking.
Coaching.
Overcoming limiting beliefs or creating new habits.
Creating new habits.
Helping one person deeply or inspiring thousands.
Inspiring thousands.
Celebrating new wins or focusing on the big picture.
Big picture.
Ryan, we're almost at the end of the episode. I loved it so much, and I want to give you a couple of seconds or minutes to leave a word to the audience before we end up. What could be this message?
You're so much more powerful than you think you are. I understand maybe you went through stuff as children that didn't make sense and it maybe didn't feel good, but I encourage you to go back and reflect on those painful moments and start to ask yourself a different question. How were these moments gifts in my life? And what you'll find and what you will discover, as I did, is those were actually the moments that created the human being that you are today. And so oftentimes we're so upset at mom and dad for how they raised us. And if you understand that they truly did the best that they could with what they had, and maybe their methods of teaching you didn't align with the way you thought they should have been, those were actually the things that made you the human being that you are today.
True.
So if you're going to blame mom and dad for the bad, blame them for the good too.
True. Ryan, we have a section here, but before we go to this section, is if people want to connect with you, what is going to be the best way that they connect with you?
Yes, my social media, Ryan Zofay, Instagram. Yeah, Instagram.
I'll leave it in the description for anyone who wants to connect with Ryan. I'll leave it in the description. I loved the episode. And before we end, we have a section called the Alpha Talks Memoir, where the Alpha guest write his experience in the show. And the second thing is he write a question to the next Alpha guest, which means that you will answer a question from the previous Alpha guest. It's a way of making the Alpha guest connect. So are you ready for the question?
I am.
What was the one incident that changed your life?
Getting sober.
That's an easy one.
That's an easy one, yeah, man.
Ryan, it's a pleasure to have you today. I enjoyed the episode so much, a lot of nuggets in it, and I believe everybody watching the episode will get the knowledge and the inspiration to change. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
Brother. God bless.
Yeah.
That wraps another inspiring episode of today's show. I hope that this episode has ignited your inner alpha and left you feeling inspired, motivated, and ready to conquer any challenge that comes your way. Remember, alphas aren't born, they're made. It isn't about dominating others. It's about embracing your authenticity, leading with integrity, and making a positive impact on the world. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the Alpha Talks on your favorite podcast platform. Leave us a review and share the podcast with your fellow Alphas. Also connect with us on social media at Seif El Hakim. Share your thoughts, insight, and stories of personal and business growth with us. Let's create a movement of Alphas supporting one another. The world needs more Alphas like you exactly. Until next time, stay bold, stay driven, and stay Alpha.